Hello again, welcome back everyone. LiquorHound here with you, and thank you for joining me once again for another spirit review video. Today we've got some very wild agricole rums to take a look at. Now, I'm going to start with the original, Uruapan, and then we're going to go on to these other varietals. And what I mean by that is they're almost doing kind of what, we've been doing it up at Iron Root for now over 10 years, 11 years going on. Is we experiment with different heirloom varietals of corn, and we distill them, we age them up separately so that we can see what they mature like. Well, this is basically the Mexican Uruapan version of that, but instead of corn, they're using different varieties of sugarcane. All right, and so I've got to put my little glasses on here so I can kind of see. They're pretty much all open air fermented, wood in vats, wood fired copper pot stills, one of which being over 80 years old. Let's see, red volcanic soil. Yeah, this is just estate grown cane juice, to whereas this one right here is known as the Caña Morada, M-O-R-A-D-A, and the other one is the Caña Mayari, M-A-Y-A-R-I. Both of these are bottled at 49% ABV. The original was bottled at, this is a 2021 edition, 46.5, 93 proof, so 1 point higher. But I've only poured this one. I have not tried these, so we're going to try this together. And I don't even want to pour them yet because I want to make sure there's no nuances that are tainting each other, because I got a feeling they're going to be subtly different. But the one thing to note about agricole rums, especially when they're fresh like this, no aging, is that they can be very unsettling. If you're used to typical molasses distilled rums, where they're kind of, big brown sugar molasses, and they're lots of nice fruits, and maybe some oak if they're aged, or even the Jamaican rums where they get funky, or the Fijian rums, they'll get funky on you and kind of give you some of those real soured fermented fruits. Agricole rums typically do that way more. Okay, so they'll get really soured, overly, pretty much almost rotten fruit tones, sometimes vegetal tones. Asparagus, canned asparagus, you'll get the baby corns sometimes in them. So that's what we can kind of expect here. But this is the standard one. And this one, I want to say I picked that up for maybe about $35, $40, to whereas these special varietals are only $50. All right, but we're starting with the original on the nose. Yeah, it's all that. It's kind of got a little sweet characteristic to it, like caramel, like some kind of corn syrup. Yeah, and it goes right into, remember that baby corn I was talking about? It's definitely in here. Water chestnuts, baby corn. But there's a really nice, a little bit of like a floral tone. And maybe some, again, soured plum. Lots of soured plum, prunes in this one. So it's very, again, deep end of the rum pool, right? This isn't something you want to just kind of, jump right into if you're getting into rums. But let's go ahead and taste it. Palate, much more manageable than the actual nose. You do get that sugarcane sweetness, the juice right up front, followed by subtle hints of that kind of baby carrots in the juice, a little bit of that kind of water chestnut right there with it. But then right there you get the sweet plum, because the plum comes in, but it's not overly rotten or anything like that. It's just kind of really ripe, starting to turn plum, right up there, right up, buttered up against those vegetal tones. And then on the back end, it kind of focuses a little more back on the sugarcane juice to give you that sweet kind of vegetal expression rolling out into that finish. That little hint of that baby corn, water chestnut, when that hits, is pretty much right in the right at the front, and then right after that is where you start picking up some of those fruit characteristics. So it really kind of relinquishes, so it doesn't hang on those too long to come off super weird, kind of like the nose was implying. Overall, not overly complex. You can sip on it, maybe one glass, and I'd be done with it. Maybe in a cocktail, but I don't know what cocktails you actually make with that. So I don't know. We'll have to check that out. I'll put something in the description. I'm sure they have it on the website. Okay, now to the purple variety of sugarcane here. Oh, yeah, we got to open this thing up. My bad. All looks clear. Okay. And we shall see. Here we go on the nose. Yeah, I'm glad I did those separately because it is very similar. But this one has less of that baby corn, less of that kind of water chestnut. This is going fresher into a little touch of almost like cucumber. That plum is still overly ripe, heading towards soured fermented. That is crazy, that right there. It's almost coming off like, that's wild. It almost comes off briny, salty. I'm gonna taste this before I, go any further on that. Because it almost comes off like a soup on the nose. Interesting. All right. Like a tomato soup, that type thing? Yeah, that's what that is. Interesting. Okay, here we go. Wow. That's a much easier to drink version than this. It still has that kind of syrupy light sweetness to it up front. It definitely transitions a little more, but the fact that it's got that like kind of cucumber, little touch of, let me see, let me double check that. That kind of cucumber, little bit of tomato soup type essence to it. Touch of dill right there. That soup transitions. There's a flash of like fish, which is odd, but almost like a fish soup. So the tomato soup with a little bit of fish soup in there, because there's a little bit of that kind of, there's a little bit of that in there. Sometimes in certain bourbons, a long time ago, you used to get that kind of omega-3 type thing happening, that fish oil thing. This has just a touch of it in there. It's wild card. I mean, that no, who's going to call that? That's crazy. But when you nose this and you taste this one, if you think about that, that's in there. Definitely has some of that corn, baby corn. There is a little bit of that in there. Not as heavy as it was here. But then again, it kind of focuses. It comes into focus. It's like all out of focus up front, and then it comes into focus on the back end, and you really do just taste that sugarcane juice on the back. Lightly, very faintly floral. Big kind of minerality kind of runs in there as well. So it's, yeah, it's wild. All right, now we're going to go to the last one. I'm just going to pull it off. There we go. Okay, so for this one, that's more intense than even this one on the nose. This has got stewed tomatoes, canned green beans, baby corn, some dill. This reminds me of South African. Some of those South African rums get like this when they're unaged. So if you like any of those MOBA rums, you'll probably dig these at half the price. But it's dense. There's a lot of aromatic here. Easier to drink than this one. Again, it's very similar in how this one, it noses very strongly and very aggressively, and then when you taste it, it was much more subtle. Same thing here, probably even less so than this one, more subtle. But you can still taste those canned vegetables, canned green beans. Again, tomato soup, yeah, that carries through. But there's more of a sweetness that kind of comes in. It kind of hangs a little sweeter than this one does throughout. I think that's kind of what makes everything more palatable. But the plumminess of all these all have that. It's the best fruit to describe the fruit characteristic in these is plums, overripe, fermenting plums. But very clean as far as nice long finish. It's not overly complex. There is a little bit of citrus in there as far as like a little lemony zest going on. But very, very enjoyable. It's something that you don't want to have all the time. But if you just want to have one in your bar, if you're just getting into those, then probably this one. If you're really big aficionado of like those big, dense, really funky rums, probably this one first. But this one's up there. All right, if you want to play it safe, go here. And then more than likely, you know, depending on your market, you can probably always at least find this one. And to be honest, it's in the same ballpark. There's just a little more kind of a dried sage going on this one that these don't have. These are more into that vegetal. This definitely has that tomato and fish thing. And this is just more tomato. All right. Crazy, but that's what it is. Thank you as always for being here. Of course, if you want to continue, want me to be able to continue doing these type of videos for you that are unbiased, straightforward reviews without being beholden to any of these distilleries, because I purchase each and every one of these bottles to review. They did not send me any of these. This is just something I do so that I can help you as a fellow consumer out there to make wise buying choices. You probably have seen these on the shelves and don't know what to make of them. Now you do. So thank you as always for being here. I greatly appreciate each and every one of my viewers. Until next time, keep leaving all those great comments. I'll get back to them just as soon as I can. Everyone have a great day and cheers.